It's 12:09. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Daily Dose with JJ. Thank you for tuning in today. We have a lot to talk about, and it excites me to announce that today I'm going to be talking about cannabis. It has been, what was it? It was 2 days ago. I did a podcast on the topic of the last 10 years, the last decade of my life and how things have changed. And I was thinking it in terms of cannabis as well, because while I was doing that show, I was live streaming on my Instagram and someone asked, like, when did you start smoking weed? And I thought, oh my gosh, it's been 10 years. I've been smoking weed for off and on, for about 10 years now. And it has changed a lot since I started, and it continues to change even faster. And I just want to talk about that. I want to talk about, and you know what? I wanted to give this just a small amount of structure. That way you can know what you're getting yourself into this afternoon. I first want to talk about quickly just the course of cannabis and where it's gone in the last 10 years as far as quality and just what it's all about. And then I want to talk about commercially what's going on. What's the market looking like? Where is it going? And how has it made a splash in the last couple months, in my opinion? So let's start this off with a sip of coffee. Cheers. Coffee to coffee. Hopefully you got something good to drink on while you're listening to this show. If you're at work today, I hope you have a great day, and I hope this show brings you joy during work. So cheers, and going to take this coffee sip. Wait, here, so you can hear it. Wonderful. Okay. Let's talk about weed. I call it weed. Many people in the industry call it cannabis, but I've called it weed since day one, and it's just in my head. Respect. But besides the terminology, weed back in 2010, 2009, around the time where I started smoking, this was a very, very fascinating time in Michigan, where I'm from, because out here, things were already moving. But in Michigan, it was just when medical marijuana was brand new, and it did a lot of things. But let me pump the brakes. The first weed I ever got was brick. It was flat stems, like swag. It was it was outdoor, probably, Mexico is typically where it would have been from, I guess. I don't know if that's true at all, but it was just this. It was terrible. Terrible in the sense of it was a lot different. And the high that it would give you is very like lightheaded. You'd laugh a lot. Those commercials where you'd see someone chilling on the couch were a little bit more accurate with this stuff. But moving forward, like that was when I was about 16 years old. So medical was just becoming a thing in Michigan, and that did something to the quality and the accessibility of weed to everybody. First, just like with anything, it was super expensive. It was kind of hard to get. Not many people had a medical card, at least not like many of the average people would have medical cards, and dispensaries were very few and far between. Plus, there weren't very many like regulated and like decent products on the market. But the weed was still getting better. The quality wise, weed was getting much better. It was starting to, like, people were actually paying attention to the I don't know what the genetics and the science behind growing it. And something interesting happened in Michigan. Now, first of all, like I said, weed was getting better, but then suddenly it became, there was like a fad, I want to say, because it's still scrutinized everywhere. But it was like a fad where growing weed legally under the state's law for medicinal purposes became like kind of like a gardening community. And not to say that that's not legit, but it blew up so fast, and it had a huge effect on the market. People were learning how to grow really high quality cannabis, like really, really, really good stuff. They were taking the time, and everything was small batch because there weren't big farms getting like they just wasn't happening because it was still too new, too risky. So what we saw was all of these households that had just like farmers, like people growing their small amount of weed, maybe like 6 to 12 plants or so. I think it was something like that legally. And it was really good stuff. Now we have choices. We can get medical, which is good and accessible now. It's everywhere. Or you can get the dog shit that we normally got. The good part was you could choose at the time what you wanted. And at this time, medical grade weed was still really expensive. But now we move forward just a little bit. Things are starting to develop and people are learning more. The market is maturing a bit and prices are decreasing. This was a very awesome time to buy weed from your homie because your homie always got good medical weed from someone who was growing legally and knew what they were doing. So I think this was probably 2013 or so, 2014 in Michigan, where I just remember that weed prices were really low. They were low at the time for what, after the big boom of medical. Ounces went from $400 down to 280, I think it was, $10 a gram as you would get. And that was a good deal because you're actually getting something that was going to get you high for a while. You didn't have to smoke it all the time. So a lot of things have changed in the cannabis industry since then. And I won't say that I was fully aware of all of the things that were going on during that time, let's say between 2014 to like 2017. I was pretty much just smoking, but, I'd like to move forward because I kind of just gave you a little bit of a backstory on my history of weed. As far as where the market was. And now I'm in California. Now I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in a place that has been on the forefront of weed. And Michigan, I will give it props. But California certainly is a name that comes to mind when it comes to advocacy for cannabis. So now here I am in California. I moved here just about a year or so, almost a year after weed became recreationally legal in the state. And I really been able to see a lot of changes in a very short amount of time. When I first arrived here in about October, November of 2018, so weed had been legal for almost a year in California. When I first arrived, and I even tested some things out, I visited in, I think it was like August. So a few months in, a lot of stores. And this is what I was seeing. You could, first of all, from the menu, from the description, from the price, still to this day, you have to know what you're talking about. And I'll get into that. But I couldn't for the life of me find something that was consistent. One store would sell me a certain strain or product and with all of this stuff for whatever price. And another shop would sell me something just like it. And they would be totally different. The first legal weed experience I ever had in my life, I got a delivery service. I just bought a couple of things, maybe just like I got 2 bags of weed. I got a bag of weed and a gram for free. And it was so bad. I didn't even like get a buzz. It was like the worst weed I ever had. Granted, like, I'm just like, okay, well, they can't all be like this. So I went to another store and sure enough, guys, this was great. So I went to another store after having this pretty poor first impression. And I go to a store and I get another, bag of weed and it was the best shit ever. It was so amazing. It literally like opened my eyes to a completely new, in my mind, category of weed that was that good. So there was a lot. I knew that there was a lot to learn. At one hand, I'm getting some stuff that's garbage. On the other hand, I'm getting stuff that's as fire as it gets in my eyes. So let's start to dig in. I've been here in Southern California for, how long we been here? About a year and a half. And let's see, when I first arrived, let's talk about the first few months. Going into the end of 2018 into 2019, the cannabis industry in California was at a very unique spot, unlike any time before or even currently. And where it was, there were brands that were starting to develop, or not starting to develop, but I would say starting to gain traction in a broader sense as far as marketability, like Cookies and big brand, West Coast Cure, big brands that have been around for a while. And what I was noticing was, first of all, a lot of stores, I want to say there were a lot of places where you really weren't sure what you were getting. And by that, I mean, like, they would have strains, they would have, indica, sativa, hybrid, whatever they wanted to tell you. But sure enough, all of these, like sometimes you get a really killer deal and most of the time you didn't. And you go to a shop and it'd be picking up random shit. That's what it felt like. It never felt like you were getting a good deal, unless you got lucky. And the quality wasn't there. You could tell yourself, fuck it, I'm going to go spend that extra money on what they're telling me is good. And the problem with me is there was no consistency with that extra couple bucks. It was never. Usually it wasn't much better than what you were getting. And sometimes the cheaper stuff was better, which really made me understand that the suppliers didn't really have fully a grasp of what they were doing, of how they were selling these or regulating the quality of these products. Now, fast forward to today. What has happened? What has happened in the market? And why is it so different? Well, I'll tell you. First, laws and for legal reasons, I think many places are tightening down on what they're selling, which is good. I have nothing against that. Any place that is worth buying from is going to provide you with lab testing for all of their products. And you're going to have all the information that you want when you're buying it. Not, is this any good? What's it smell like? There were times you could go into pretty much any store months ago, not any store, but a lot of stores around here say, okay, well, what's the percentage on this? Well, they have no idea. Now it's a little different. People are really particular about what they're smoking, as they should be, because we're putting this into our bodies. I mean, imagine if in the US, we didn't have to list all the ingredients on your food. Like, I get supplements are a gray area that I won't even get into. But yeah, like it's just that. So the market's going in a place that's more informative, but it's also going to a place that is more pandering to the everyday user and non-connoisseur. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm against this while I talk about this, because I'm not. Marketing is a complex mechanism that I think needs to be taken seriously. And even though I take my cannabis seriously and knowing and understanding what I'm smoking, what I'm, interested in, what types of products I like, I think that I just totally lost my train of thought, dude. Speaking of cannabis, I just picked up some of what's his name, dude from Cypress Hill. He has this company, Insane, amazing weed. The company is called Insane. It is Insane, but the company's name the brand is Insane. And I smoked on some Church OG this morning. Very, very good. If you're in Southern California, I'd highly recommend you check it out. Insane. Dr. Green Thumb is the store where I got it. Great place, really clean. They were really awesome. They took the whole coronavirus precautions very seriously. So where we're at with this weed. So what happens is these brands are doing a few things. Number one, they're protecting themselves and the consumers by doubling down on their efforts to make sure that things are safe and things are high quality, and that they're transparent with what they're doing with their products. So that's good. And another thing that they're doing with branding is, like I said a second ago, they're really pandering to that non-connoisseur. You'll notice, go on Weed Maps, go on Leafly, go on whatever the fuck you want, go to your favorite store. You will now see there's no longer like it used to be on a bar. Like, imagine you walked into a bar, like let's say like a restaurant, and you see a bunch of liquor bottles and not one of them had a label. Every single one of them just had a different color liquid, different size and shape bottle. Maybe they're all the same shape. How about that? They're all the same size and shape, every single bottle. And they just have to, and it just has like a printed off label of what the name of it is. Would you buy it? So nowadays what you're seeing is everything is packaging is huge. If you are if you just graduated college, or you're starting, you're trying to start your own business, or you're a graphic designer, or you're something like that, branding in the cannabis industry is fucking huge right now. So go make your money. Go do it. Take it from me. But you're going to see more branding that has bright colors. It has flashy content. It needs to grab your attention. Not all of them, but everything. Like I said, the packaging has been taken very seriously, especially in comparison to before. And the way they're marketing the strains is, you'll notice a lot of brands, they have some smaller brands will just have three strains available at any given time. Whether it's flower, concentrate, they'll have your indica, your sativa, and your hybrid. And it's hilarious. It's good to know that stuff. It really is, but it's funny, and they're all color coded. You'll notice that one brand might have red for sativa, blue for indica, and green for hybrid. I've seen it a lot. It's a great idea. I'm not hating on it. I'm simply commenting on the simplicity of it. And I think, you notice that in a lot of successful branding, plenty of successful branding. I mean, FedEx with an arrow in it, like, come on. It's subliminal, but it's intentional, and it's important. It's important in good branding. So kudos to the powerhouses going on. I guess I don't really know. I don't really know like these companies or individuals who are in the industry kicking ass with branding, but that's a huge, huge piece of it. The way that the packaging is going now. So back in the day, literally like a few months ago, you could walk into a weed shop, and there's a big jar of weed, and you can just tell them how much of it you wanted, and they'll weigh it for you and give it to you in a little disposable jar or reusable jar, plastic jar, and you'd be on your way. Now, everything is prepackaged. Now, just kind of covering myself here, like, it's cool. I believe that does it's quality control. It's safer. It's definitely more sanitary, way more sanitary to have closed packaging, especially considering, like, assuming these facilities are sanitary. But it's everything's prepackaged. Many companies are only selling they're selling very small quantities. If you buy in bulk, you have to search other specialty type of packages for that. And I'm starting to get used to what's happening, but I don't want to, because as you've heard me talk about this whole time, like, first of all, 10 years it seems to be a pretty good amount of time. It's not forever, but it's a long time for something to develop. But just over the last year, 1 to 2 years, so much has changed. And mind you, I'm in California right now. In Michigan, they just legalized it for recreational, and they are still learning. They are learning so much right now. The stores, they've had plenty of stores, but they're still learning. Just as these California stores had to learn a couple, when they first legalized it. They have no fucking clue what they're doing. They're falling on their ass. Some are innovating in cool ways. Some are innovating in ways that are not going to be noticed, I don't think. It's the Wild West wherever you go, because this is an emerging industry, and it's an industry that has a lot of passion. Look at how many people have fought for years, decades, probably longer, for marijuana. It's because, if you're against weed, I'm not against you. I just truly don't think that you need it in your life. And that's okay. I mean, don't fuck with me, but like, that's okay that you don't need it. I think that it helps people. Well, I know that it does because of how much I believe that it helps me in many parts of my life. But I think that, it's really cool that there's a plant out there that can bring people together and can inspire so much. It probably isn't all 100% good, fireworks, daisies all the time, but it inspires so much. It's a powerful force, and to me, that's undeniable. So cannabis over the last 10 years, it has changed a fuck ton. That is for sure. Where is it going, though? I don't want to get comfortable in the space that I'm in. Where's it going? How? And I'm thinking out loud at this point. How can I innovate to not only become a powerhouse in the industry? I want to get into the industry via media at the moment, just pictures, videos, marketing. But how can I stay ahead of the game? And how can I take what I've noticed over the last few years, 10 years, whatever, how can I apply that to predict what are the patterns? I think the patterns that I've seen so far is that the changes that happen as a reactive society, cannabis society, usually make sense. They might not be good or right. I'm using air quotes, good or right. But they certainly tend to be somewhat realistic, or what's the word I'm looking for? Jeez. Rational. Thank you. Thank me. Rational. Somewhat rational. Like when it became legal in Michigan to grow marijuana under certain licenses, and I'm not even saying this as a stereotype or in any sort of connotative way. It was a huge flux in the stay-at-home mom kind of like housewife. I'll just put housewife, and many dudes, I'm sure, stay-at-home partner. They would be getting into these hobbies, using a mix of their passion for what they're doing and a need to do something new. It made sense that the market was flooded with great weed, and it became cheaper, and it just made sense. And honestly, it pretty much stayed that way until the laws changed and the industry reacted. So maybe just off of first glance, the proper thing to do reactively is to be hyperactive when you react. I think when there's something going on in the world, and I'm a learner at this right now. I don't know. Like I've been seeing all kinds of things on social media where maybe the US might be passing some national, like federal marijuana. I have not read into that. I don't trust headlines, so I have not read into that. But assuming that there's some changes in legislation or some changes in policy or in the culture, those things need to be taken seriously. I think we need to look into what's changing, what's happening, what's actually moving in the living pieces of this industry. And that's how we are going to react in the right way that's going to allow us to prosper in this time of rapid and continuous change in the cannabis industry. I think now is a better time than ever to cut this off. I've had a great time digging into what cannabis is, how cannabis has changed and where it's going. If you have any thoughts, let's just say if you have any thoughts about this show or if you have any insight as to what is going to happen in the industry, send me a message. If you're listening on my website, I have a message box below, and it can remain anonymous if you don't put your name in it. If you'd like to contact me any other way, I have a Facebook page for the Daily Dose with JJ. I'm also live streaming every single day on my Instagram at baptiste.life. That's BAPTISTE.life. Yeah, send me a message, send me something. If you have any predictions on where the industry is going, if you have any memories that you'd like to share with me, maybe from where you're from, or even truths that are still to this day happening in your setting, because it is different all over the place. Let me know. I'd love to hear your piece. And honestly, if it's fascinating, like if it's different from my own egocentric perspective, I would love to share it on the show. Of course, if you give me permission to do so. Thank you so much for listening. I've had a blast talking about this topic today. It's been another episode of the Daily Dose with JJ. I'm so excited to be back on tomorrow.